Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Falconer, and very excited for a very special guest today. If you have any interest at all in surf fishing, distance casting, or you are a serious surf angler, especially in the Carolinas, then my guest today is no stranger to you. It's none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Tommy Farmer. And just for those of you, we don't have time for me to go over all of Tommy's qualifications, but he is a world champion level distance caster. He's won 50 tournaments in the U.S., including 16 national championships tournaments. He's literally, I'm not exaggerating, has held or holds every single distance casting record you can have in the U.S. I mean, he's the man. He has traveled to Europe 5 times to represent the U.S. 4 times he finished in the top 5, and in 2006, at the to that point largest casting tournament, international distance casting tournament the world had ever seen, he finished 2nd overall in the world. He needs no introduction when it comes to competition level distance casting, but he's also a very avid surf angler. He got into the distance casting because he's such an avid big red drum angler in North Carolina. He is not personally a rod builder, but everything else about making the very best distance casting rods in the world, from designing the blanks to managing their manufacturer and finishing factory rods to the highest standard for people that want absolute max distance casting capability for both competition and for fishing. There's nobody better. He also runs Carolina Cast Pro, where you can get an exclusive series of Achios rods that he works with Achios on with their North
Reels.
American reels. I'm sorry, Achios reels. And we're going to talk about the whole tackle system. He's got all of his rods. So please welcome, without any further ado or hot air from me, Tommy Farmer. Welcome, Tommy.
Hello. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Well, I'm awfully glad to have you, and we couldn't hardly ask for a better guest. If any of you have attended ICRBE, you might have met Tommy, or Tommy and his wife and his team. They're usually there with Carolina Cast Pro. I have bought several. He has all the kit you need. I mean, it's going to become very clear to you very quickly that Tommy's been on the sand a lot, and or the rocks, right? And he knows what he's doing, and he's got some great kit. And like the rod holders are the best I've ever used, the heavy duty rod holders, and we're using them, Tommy, down here on the Northern Gulf Coast for land-based shark fishing. I
They're great.
lost one rod one time out of a PVC holder with a 50 wide and a big land-based shark rod and the whole rig, and I was like, never, ever, ever again. And so I'm running your heavy duty rod stands now, and that's been a good thing for me. But welcome to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast. We were talking before we started recording, and you were telling me an interesting story about how you got into the distance casting. You were actually out fishing, and you caught one of these massive land-based red drum that you really kind of can only get probably in the Carolinas. I mean, there's just not that many fish that big. And I fish in Louisiana all the time, and we catch fish to 40 plus inches all the time. But we're talking about, do you mind telling that story about you were out there one morning and this
Yeah.
guy's casting and you've never seen someone cast as far as this
Yep.
guy? And
Yep. I got it. 1996 October. Myself, my brother, and some friends decided to take a trip to Cape Hatteras. To this point in time, I had just fished locally here, the beaches of Southeast North Carolina, Carolina Beach, Fort Fisher, and I was nobody. I was absolutely just a regular guy.
just a
But
dude.
we decided to go to Cape Hatteras and got up there, and one of the tackle shops told us that that previous night, that morning, that they had caught drum. There was a big drum run, and they said they'll probably be here again in the morning. So we packed up, went down to the beach, got there about 4 a.m., got out of the truck, got rigged up, started walking to the beach, and I saw a guy, and this was before there were limits. You could keep these fish.
Right.
I saw a guy dragging a drum by the gill plate and
Yep.
dragging it. Biggest drum I'd ever seen. I'd never seen anything like it. So
Yeah.
my excitement meter, it was up. So I walked down to the beach, and on my very first cast that I ever made from Cape Point, an 11-foot, I think it was a Penn power stick rod and a great
Yep.
big 8,500 or 9,500 size spinning reel.
Right.
I threw my first cast from Cape Point, caught, fought, and landed a 45-inch drum. It was a life, actually, it was a life altering
Yeah.
morning for me for a couple, for the reason of catching that fish. Plus, right after daybreak, my buddy and I were standing there, and a guy walks up kind of behind us, but to the right of us. And I turned and watched this guy cast. And I had never seen anything like it. This guy bombed a cast out there way past everybody else, hundreds of feet past me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
way past everybody else. And he just kind of looked and nodded and moved on down the line. Well, come to find out that this guy was actually the reigning North Carolina State distance casting champion. His name was Mike. It's okay to use names, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
fine with me.
Mike Langston. He's a buddy of mine, and we're
Yeah.
still friends.
That's
And
awesome.
he
Y'all
uh,
still
he was
friends
the
even though you stole his title 5 years
Oh
later?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It took me. I was not the fastest study. I didn't get good fast. I had to work for it. But about
Yeah.
5 years later, at a casting tournament, I took his title. I took the
Oh
North
man.
Carolina State. He had it. His record at that time was like 775 feet,
Good.
and I took that title from him. And it all spurred from that one early morning on Cape Point, North Carolina, where number one, I caught the biggest on my first cast. I caught the biggest drum I'd ever caught,
Yeah.
and then watching Mike cast it. I don't know. It lit something inside of me, and I wanted to learn to do that. And
Well, oh,
and
man, how lucky are we that you were there that day and y'all went down there and that he was there? No, really, like it's so
it,
amazing that this one deflection point, this one sentinel event could have changed the course of the rest of your life and this became
it
your world, man.
certainly did. I was a my career at that time. I operated and ran a power plant. That's what I
Okay.
did.
Okay.
And I got an opportunity years later to take an early retirement, so I walked away from that career at 52, and I already had my rod business going. So
Yeah.
it was an easy transition for me, but it all stemmed from that morning at Cape Point, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So it was very cool. And Mike and I, we were friends after that. We're still friends to this day.
That's so awesome. I mean, it's so amazing. It's such a great story, right? Like, what if he wasn't there? What if the fish weren't there? What if the shop had sent you to a different beach?
Yep. Yep.
It's crazy. And a lot of people don't know this, um, but the entire history of Fuji is based around competitive distance casting. And so a lot of people don't know this, but this is back 100 years ago. So Kazuhito Omura-san is the current shogun and runs Fuji globally, right, out of Shizuoka, Japan, Fuji Kogyo Company Limited. But his father and his grandfather both ran the company before him. And they started out let's see if I get my years right. They started out in, gosh, it was in the 30s, and they ran a metal stamping business. And specifically, they made print press and type press pieces and plates and things like this, right? And then they were among the first to figure out how to stamp out of metal a men's watch bracelet, right? Or a lady's watch bracelet, where it was a bunch of little links that had to be precision formed, where it would be kind of slinky and wrap around your wrist and be comfortable, but be made out of metal, right? And so that was the family business. But both the the grandfather and the father were hardcore competitive distance casters. And so they started looking for um, a competitive advantage, frankly, right? And looking for a way to improve their casting performance. And they had all this metal stamping equipment, and so they were in Ryugi Omura became obsessed with the slickness of the rings, and tried all different kind of materials, including precious gemstones and metals and various levels of polish and all this kind of stuff, and ended up tumbling to ceramics, which in the beginning were very brittle, and so they figured out how to encase a ceramic ring in sort of a shock ring material to protect it and put it in a frame, right? Um, and this is sort of where they came from. And in something like, I'm going to get it, I think it was 1938, this all started. And in like 1945, the eldest Omura wrote a short document called Ryugi's Principle. And this is in the 40s, and it is essentially what we call the new guide concept now, right? Which was small ring, high frame guides that are very slick to bring the line quickly under control, right? So that it can get efficiently through the guides and maximize casting distance. So this whole topic is very near and dear to my heart and to Fuji's hearts because it is literally the origin of the company, right? And that's what started them on a path. And eventually they had so much success with that. They partnered with Lou Childry in the US and started exporting their products for the first time in the late 60s, early 70s. And literally the rest is history, right? But it's a fascinating world. And, it's interesting to me too, because distance fly casting, those rods they don't resemble a fishing fly rod at all, right? It is like a different tool for a different set of things, but there's really not a huge amount of difference between what you're distance casting with and what you're fishing with this type of distance casting, right? Yeah. So
Sure.
so talk to me, like, I know there's some practical differences. Like what's your personal longest cast you've ever thrown?
My longest cast ever was in practice
Okay.
sometime about 2005-ish, 2006. It was 897 feet
Wow.
measured. I actually measured it 3 times. That's how badly I wanted it to be 900,
Yeah, yeah.
but it wasn't. I didn't make it. It was 897 feet. But my longest casting competition was 859.52 feet.
And it's
Um,
unbelievable. Where do you even go to practice casting, man?
well,
A
here,
rifle
here,
range?
Now, in Wilmington, I was lucky. I found a field. It was over, which it doesn't exist anymore because they've developed it. But
Sure.
there was a field at the local. They call it an international airport. It's just because they're connecting flights to other international airports. But there
Right.
was a great big field out there. It's a parking lot now. But I used to
Yeah.
go. I called it my field of dreams, and that's where I went. And when I got started in this, I was not. I was 39 years old when I started. I was a late starter.
You're late starter.
Most guys were, most guys that get started and are in their 20s. So I was a late starter, and it was it was a challenge for me. I had to
Yeah.
learn the techniques. I could not get by on, athleticism or sheer size and strength, and
Right.
so it was a learning curve, and I had to take one chunk at a time. I mean,
Who did you learn
every
from? Did you learn from Mike, or who did you?
Mike and I were competitors.
Okay.
I may have learned some from Mike, but there are a list of guys that I would call mentors.
Yeah.
There was a guy in Texas. His name was Jerry Valentine, and he mentored me. There's a guy up in Virginia, Bill Kennedy. He helped get through my rock hard head several things. And then probably the single biggest influence on my cast was a guy from the UK. His name was Peter Thane.
Peter Thane.
He came over here. I went to a seminar that he gave, and he took an interest in me. He saw
Yeah.
some potential in me, and he helped me to understand the mechanics of the cast, what's actually going on, the dynamics of the sinker, and where it needs to be in the path when you hit the rod. And it really opened up a window for me. And then there are others, a couple of other British guys, named one Roger Mortimer and Neil McKellow.
Okay.
Neil McKellow has passed away. He was a world champion multi times over, but he also took an interest in me. And back, right after Al Gore invented the internet, and we started being able to communicate.
Somebody fact check that. Somebody fact
Yeah,
check that. We're
yeah,
all about
yeah,
integrity of data here on
yeah.
the
That's right.
Mastering Rod
That's right.
Building podcast.
Yeah, but yeah, he helped me a lot via email,
Yeah.
and it just I started. I wore out 3 video cameras when I would go to the field. I would go practice for 2 to 3 hours at a time, 3 to 4 days a week. I did that for over a decade, and I would take a video camera with me, and this is how I was able to do it. I videotaped every single cast,
Wow.
and by doing that, I would throw a cast. And while what I thought I had done was still fresh before I even went out and got the sinker, I would look at the videotape and look at it, and I would say, what you thought you were doing, Tommy, and what you're actually doing were 2 different things. So you got to tighten up. You got to get this fixed. So that's how I did it. I was pretty much self-taught with a lot of help from other people who did mentor me on the proper techniques.
Well, and kids, listen to what he just said, right? And we were talking before we started recording about the 10,000 hours, right? And that there's no substitute, even if you're talented, there is no substitute for putting in the work, right?
Yep.
And even for world champions, second place in the world like you, national champion like you, many times over. Wow. I mean, that's like professional level hitter, recording batting practice level stuff, man. I mean, that's like
Well, that's
serious diligence. And kids are like, "Oh, that's easy. You just do it with your phone." No, kids, we didn't have a phone. He had like a
no.
VHS or a beta cassette
Yeah,
recorder.
yeah, yeah.
Look up what those
Yes.
are. I hope they're still on Wikipedia. This was back when we're so old. This is back when in our history class we just talked about what we was doing. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that's how long ago this was, right? Like,
Yeah.
so,
We're going
but
back to the late 90s through the
no, that's a
2015
lot
and
of people
10.
didn't even have a video camera back then,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
Like, that's
I wore three of them out.
that's
Yes.
crazy to
Yep.
me.
Yep. But that's how I did it. That was my path. And what I do now, I teach people to cast, and I try to cut through that learning curve by,
Yep.
I know what works. I know what worked for me, what didn't work for me.
Yeah.
What I can do to smooth out that learning curve and
Yeah.
to shorten it.
Well,
So,
and the fact that you've developed a whole range of products that make this
yeah.
is another thing that's changed is I'm sure you couldn't just get an Achios reel, you know what I mean? And you couldn't. We'll talk about the gear and the kit, but it's also kind of it's so much easier to get your hands on this stuff now than it was, thanks in no small part to stuff like Carolina Cast Pro, right? Where you've said,
Well,
"Hey, I've
thank you.
tried it all, and I know what's the best, and so here's what I recommend. Here's what I use personally, and here you can get it if it's what you need." Right? Like
Yeah.
that really really helps. But it's also cool, y'all understand that he's also designing and manufacturing blanks, overseeing the design of blanks from the ground up to high quality finished rods, and knows a lot about the process we're going through with component selection, layout of handles, layout of guide trains, all this kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about all that. Just for my frame of reference, you're talking about these nearly 900-foot casts, and obviously you're one of the best in the world. How does that compare to the distance you're casting when you're fishing? Are you throwing casts over 700-800 feet in actual fishing conditions too, or are they generally
No.
much shorter? Okay.
No. These casts on the field are with basically torpedo-shaped sinkers,
Sure.
very aerodynamic, of specific grams of weight.
Right.
There is no bait involved,
Yeah.
and we are you're restricted based on the diameter of the line. So each weight has its own line diameter associated with it.
Okay.
When you remove the bait and you're standing on solid ground in a field, your distances go up. We
Oh yeah.
typically we typically set the field up with the wind behind us if we
Sure.
can,
Right.
and it all adds up. That being said, now somebody who trains and understands the dynamics and the techniques of distance casting is going to throw further on the beach
Sure.
than the guy who doesn't,
Yeah.
who thinks he knows, and probably the worst ones are the big strong guys who just bull power cast it out. They can get to 500 feet, but after that, they run into a wall that they got to have technique to get past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but to answer your question, I would say an average cast for me on the beach is going to be between 400 and 500 feet with bait.
Yeah. Wow.
With
That's a
bait,
that's a
so
long way.
it's still a
And
long ways. Yes,
and
yeah.
revolving spool reels, right? So like,
Oh
and
yeah, bait
again,
casting.
I want to be very clear about this. Yeah, we're using what we call an overhead reel, a revolving spool reel, a bait casting reel, right? Typically
Yep,
non-level wind, right?
yep.
And again, this is a very specialized piece of equipment, and I know that we have a lot of East Coast surf fishermen, a lot of West Coast surf fishermen, a lot of Gulf Coast surf fishermen that are like, oh, you don't surf cast with a revolving spool reel. But again, you can fish a spinning reel if that's what you want to do it. But again, there's a talk to me about the reel a little bit, because that's a very important part of the kit if you're trying to extend your distance, right?
I mean, this is a tuned, tweaked tournament bait casting reel. I keep it in my office just to show people what it is and what it's capable of doing. I'm gonna roll the magnets all the way off on it. I've got the drag tight. I'm gonna flip the handle and put it in free spool.
Disengage it, yeah. And this thing's
And
just gonna spin for days.
I've got what I did. I've got I turned the magnets wrong way. So here we go.
We're talking about free spool, people.
Yeah, it's spinning right now. Probably hard to see. I usually will put a black
Sure.
magic marker
Right.
dot on it so
So
you
you can
see it.
see it.
But
Yeah.
we can have a conversation. I'm gonna put this down, and I'm not gonna touch it. I'll show you again in a few minutes that it's still spinning.
Yeah.
It'll spin for about between 4 and 5 minutes.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, and that's the degree. I mean, there it is.
Now,
She's still
oh
getting it.
yeah, she's still getting it. Now you
That's the
say you're talking about that as a tune tournament reel. Are you fishing
Yep.
with the reel like that, or are you fishing with
No,
it? Okay.
Absolutely not. This reel would be useless fishing because you can't, without breaking it down and going in, lubricating the bearings, adding magnets, taking steps to slow it down. You can't fish it. It's too fast. It would blow
Okay.
up on every. It is. It's tuned to me for when I was at my peak,
Yep.
and it's really probably a little too much for me now.
It's hot.
But
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's very spicy.
We are
She's still
literally
getting it.
sitting here talking. It's minutes
Yeah,
later, and
yeah,
I
it's
do
it's
this with
still
bait casters and BFS reels and stuff all the time. Like this thing is still rolling. He's not kidding. This is crazy.
yeah,
What
it's
kind
still
of
getting
reel
it.
is that?
This is a custom. It's a Zeta tuning
Okay.
cage with a Zeta spool, um, Zeta side plate. It's all Zeta, which is an Italian company
Okay.
that makes high performance casting reels for competitive distance casters. It's
Man.
pretty much it's pretty much the Cadillac or the Mercedes of the distance casting world. It's just starting to slow enough that you
I
can
was just
see
you
the
can
spool
almost see the
tuning.
full roll
Yeah,
here
you can
two and
see
a half
this.
minutes later. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
she's still getting it. And when it comes to a stop, you can watch it. And this is one of the one of the things that I use when tuning a reel. When it finally comes to a stop, it should just turn and stop. If it rocks or rotates, that means you've got a little balance issue.
Okay.
It's heavy on one side, so you've got to kind of, sometimes you got to strip all the line off and go back and rebalance it.
That's
And
crazy.
that's the eagle feathers and fairy dust of reel balancing is how you put the first 20 to 30 yards of line on.
Okay.
That's how you balance one. That's how you make one that is capable of doing this. A reel that's not balanced, even if it had the same bearings in it, is not going to spin
Won't be
like
as
this.
efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this knob over here, that's the magnet. When I get ready to cast, I'll put the magnets on almost full
Yep.
so that I can control that initial bird nest.
Right.
And then as it's flying, I'll roll the magnets off, keep two or three strands. See, it's slowing down now. You can
That's
see it.
crazy. Yeah, now you can
Yeah,
actually see it at a human
yeah,
speed of rotation.
yeah, yeah.
So crosswalk me then, translate me from this to a fishing reel. So talk to me. You
Okay.
mentioned a few things, but talk to me about all the things that are different and talk to me about the reels you're actually fishing with.
Okay. I fish with a reel. Uh, the company's called Akios or
Yep.
Akios. They're out of the UK.
Hmm.
They make a fine quality reel all the way across the board. They've had one for a few years now that they named the F15 Nitron.
Okay.
They just came out with one called the F16 Nitron, and I just love it. It's a great reel. As far as comparing casting that to this reel, it's really apples and oranges because I like my
Well,
fishing
different
reels.
application. Yeah.
My fishing reels I like on the slow side. If I took one of my fishing reels and spun it like that, it might spend 10 to 12 seconds,
Yeah.
maybe, instead
Okay.
of 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And and it's all about gaining control of the spool. There are people who won't fish bait casters because they're afraid of the bird nests. And
Yeah.
and it's a part of life. It still happens to me. I get them when I'm fishing in crowds. I'll still get them once in a while.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. People laugh and you go on and get another reel.
Right.
But when you can get it tuned and get it balanced so that when you hit the rod, that line just fluffs up a little bit, then settles back down. You can ride that edge and you can actually
Yeah.
throw these bait casters further than you can throw a spinning reel.
Well,
And
and that's the point, right? And that's what I wanted people to understand. Fish whatever makes you happy, right?
exactly.
But I'm telling you, the best casters in the world can't come close to the same distance with a spinning reel as they can with a multiplier or a overhead or a
Not,
bait cast
yeah,
type reel.
not if you're staying legal. If you're staying legal,
Right.
and by legal I mean line diameter.
Yeah.
A spinning reel loaded up with light, thin braid will throw a long, long ways, but
Yeah.
they're illegal in tournaments. You've
Sure.
got to be
Sure.
restricted to your line diameter. But
Well, and
I
they have
still,
limitations fishing off the beach with rocks and with sandbars and with real world
yep,
conditions where you have abrasion as a concern too, right?
yes, that's exactly
Um,
right.
so this reel, and I'm looking at this Nitro. That's a really good looking reel. For those of you who aren't familiar with these reels, it's a round profile, open cage, open top kind of.
Yep.
Think of a round style reel like an Ambassador almost, but wider, very specific spool width and side plate geometry, handles, star drag, all this kind of stuff. So it's a good looking reel. And
Similar. similar in size to a 6500 Abu
Okay, I was
Garcia.
going to ask. Okay, yeah.
Similar, yeah, a
So
little
people
bit
would
bigger, but not much.
right, but no level wine, no
Nope.
cage, totally open top,
Yep.
right? A fully machined, good looking piece. How are you spooling those? And this is not competition now. We're talking about for fishing. Are you still running mono off the beach, or are you running
Yep.
braid?
I'm
Okay,
running monofilament on a bait caster. I don't,
okay,
there's a lot of things about braided line on bait casters that I don't like. Now,
okay.
this will entice an argument. There are going to be people that say,
Sure.
oh, no, my 65-pound braid does just as good. I don't like the fact that when you're fighting a big fish, and we catch drum here on the Outer Banks that are, 50 plus pounds. World record 94 pounds was caught here. The last two world records were caught
Right.
here in North
Yeah.
Carolina, and so we get the big fish, and we use the bait casting reels. I run typically monofilament in the 20 to 25-pound range while I'm drum fishing,
Yeah.
and,
God,
and
that
that's
seems so
more.
light for the fish, the size of fish you're
It,
catching, man.
well, we're using shock leader. This is very, very important, and I want to say this to anybody who thinks they may want to distance cast and apply any of the techniques that we're going to talk about today. Use a shock leader. I don't
Yep.
mean a bite leader, a shock leader, which is a stretch of monofilament line. We usually use 50 to 60-pound test. From your when your cast ready and your bait's dangling up to the rod tip down to the spool at a minimum of 8 wraps on
Eight
the
turns around the
spool.
spool. Okay, I was going to
On the
ask. I've
spool.
heard three before, but eight. Okay.
3 is not enough. If you have
Okay.
the slightest bit of thumb slip, you're going to get that zing pow, that
Yep.
crack off, and that's where that 3 turns
You've
came
seen
off.
me surf fish before.
Yeah, yeah. That's what happens. I typically run about 15
Turns.
wraps,
Okay.
and that's that. Now you're getting into more, not so much for the cast as for when you're fighting the fish. You get
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
these big drum on, and one thing I'm watching for when I'm fighting a big drum, I'm watching for that knot, that
Sure.
shock knot to come up and out of the surf, out of the water. Then I'll watch it when I get it on the rod tip. I'll even step out into the water a little bit to get it reeled up onto the spool.
Yeah.
Now, if the fish is really big, you still got to be careful. But if it's a 20 to 30-pound drum, you can just lock down on it with
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thumb and
Yeah.
drag it up.
Yeah.
But the big one,
You've got him once you got it to the shock leader. Yeah.
yeah, I had a fish back it's been about 3 or 4 weeks, about a month ago now, and I had the shock leader on the spool, and it was a big fish. It was high 40s, low 50-inch drum, and the daggone wave washed out from under it and pulled it and snapped the line. I didn't get my finger off quick enough on my thumb, so it yeah
It can happen.
it's
It can happen.
that
If it can
that
happen to
but
you, I guarantee it can happen to the rest of
oh
us.
yeah, I
You've
can mess
brought
something up in a
more big
heartbeat.
drum, yeah, to the beach than a bunch of us put together, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I got to tell
But
you that fishery you guys have is pretty remarkable. I've
it's
always fished for redfish in Venice, Louisiana, and I've always been
mhm,
impressed with the size and the quantity. But I started slow pitch jigging with a couple of guys who become really good friends of mine who fish the Outer Banks all the time.
mhm.
Alan Rosenberger and Alex Scott, and I'm showing them pictures, and I'm all proud. I'm like, here's my biggest redfish,
Yeah.
48 and a half inches, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we don't redfish that much. They start pulling. I swear to you, like every fish they've got is over 50 inches. They're not
Oh
even
yeah,
taking a
and
picture of one. It's like, holy cow! And like you mentioned, the world record. They that hadn't been that long when it got broken again, and they sent me a picture that day, and it's like if you've never seen a 94-pound red drum, it's like it's almost like something out of your dreams or your nightmares. I don't know. It's like I didn't know
yeah,
they got that big.
yeah. They're big, and it's kind of funny. November, I think it's November the 7th is National Drum Day.
Yeah.
The last two world record drums were caught in Avon, North Carolina. The last one was in, I think, 84. And then prior to that, it was like 10 years earlier. They were
Yeah.
both caught on the same day out in Avon, North Carolina. So I don't think it's not a real national holiday, but if we call it
It
National
ought to
Drum
be.
Day,
Yeah, it
it ought
is
to
on
be.
this episode of the podcast, buddy. It is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
20 to 25-pound mono
yep.
to a 50 or 60-pound shock leader. And have you developed an opinion about the join between the mono and the leader? And how does that inform guide size? Like, talk to me about, because it's all a
Okay.
system, right? You have to have the whole tackle system has to work together.
You can get into knot wars with
Sure,
people.
sure.
My knot's better than your knot. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah,
And I don't play that. What you got to do, you've got to find a knot, and there are many of them. You've got to pick a knot that you can tie when it's raining, when it's cold. You got a flashlight between your teeth, and the drum are biting, and
Right.
you
Yep.
just lost one.
Combat conditions. Yep.
When
Yep.
you are at the highest level of stress for fishermen, you've got to be able to tie a knot.
Yep.
So you want something that's going to be small. It's going to go through the guides well. A great big honking knot's not good in any circumstances. If they get caught, they'll rip the inserts right out of a guide in
Yeah.
a second. Actually, I had one happen to me this past trip. I lost 3 guides
Oh
in
my.
on one cast, and I don't know how I did it, but it skipped one.
Yep.
Somehow it skipped one, but it ripped 3 of them out. But yeah. I tie a simple knot. You can go as far as you want. There are guys
Which
that are
one do
going to
you
tell you
like?
it's simple. It's called the shock knot,
Okay.
and it's an overhand single overhand knot in the on the shock leader. You run through the shock leader with your running line, and then do a 5 to 6 turn uni knot. You've
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
really lubricate it well,
Yeah.
pull it down slowly,
Yeah.
and then pulse it to lock it down. But
Yeah.
I've caught 150-pound sharks on that knot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's a good knot tied properly. There'll be some guys that'll tell you, "Oh, that knot's junk. You can't use that." But it's all about what you can tie
Yeah.
and tie it under duress.
100%. 100%. I have to confess, I am one of those not nerds who likes to time and put them on the machine and see what's strongest and all that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
even with that, if you can't tie it in combat conditions,
That's right.
hand shaking when it's going
Yep.
on, it's
Mhm.
useless to you, right? And you have to
Yep.
believe in it, right? And even if it's not as good a knot, if you tie it really well and consistently believe in it and can execute it, then that's a good knot
So
for you, and you should keep using
confidence,
it, right? Yeah.
confidence.
Okay, shock knot. That's interesting. And then in terms of terminal joint, are you guys like, is this like 8 and bait, or like
Yes.
how? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 ounces and a chunk of bait is the
Okay.
typical. Now, if you're out there and the wind's not blowing and it's not rough, number one, you're probably not going to catch a drum on that day. With the weather, if it's nice weather, you might get lucky, but the
Right.
odds are against you.
Yeah.
But when the wind's up and the wind's blowing in your face and the current's drifting, it's a unique place. Cape Point is a unique place. It sets up if you get more than a day of, say, the wind blowing out of the southwest, which is what you want.
Yeah.
You get it blown out of the southwest more than a day. You'll get what we call the conga line set up. You'll go to the end of the line, you'll cast 8 and bait out, and it'll slowly drift. You'll cast out and you'll walk, and it's like a revolving door almost.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
one and you cast,
The conga
and then you
line.
walk, and there's a conga line, and as long as everybody is throwing 8 ounces, then
You're
there's
all
no
moving at
problem.
the same pace. Yeah.
But what happens is you get this, it's inevitable. You're going to get the guy that walks up there. He doesn't have a rod that he can throw 8 and bait with, but damn it, he's going to bleep. He's going to get, he's going to get that. He
Yeah.
wants one of those drum that he sees. So he
Right.
takes his little 10-foot rod and throws out 4 ounces in a 2-drop bottom rig. And
And
then
catches
his stuff,
everybody.
his stuff goes hard left while
Right.
everybody else is drifting along.
Right.
And then what does he do? He doesn't move down. You've got to stay in front of your line. I don't
Yeah.
care what you throw, as long as you keep it in front of you and you're not crossing over other people, you're fine. But he stands there and it goes down, and then he
Oh yeah.
thinks he's got something, and he
Yep.
reels in. He reels in 6 guys.
Yeah.
And that's
6
not
very
how
unhappy guys.
you do not win friends and influence people that way at
No,
Cape
you
Point.
do not.
So it's a unique. It really truly is a unique place, and it's its own
Yeah.
fishery, its own rules. And what I would advise is anybody who goes there for the first time, take an hour, walk down to the water, get behind these guys, not within cast where they're going to hit you with a cast, but stand there and observe. Just
Yeah.
watch and learn. There's no other place that I know of where they all saying, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do."
Yeah. Yeah.
Then and
Yeah.
you're inevitably going to get somebody down there that's going to, and monofilament line is what is fished there. You're going to get somebody that's going to throw braid, and that causes problems too because it cuts monofilament.
Oh yeah.
And and that's another point that people will argue. But it is, when you're there, it's best to fit in and do what the
Sure.
locals do.
Sure.
And
Yeah, and again,
keep
to the
problems going.
10,000 hours, have a little respect that there's some people who've honed the system and know how it works, and if there was
That's
something
right.
that worked better, they'd be using it, right?
Yeah, I consider myself to be a pretty good drum fisherman.
Yeah.
My casting exploits are well known, but I consider myself to be a pretty good fisherman. But there are guys out there who are better than me, and
Yeah.
I tip my hat to these guys. There are guys that just amaze me how they can walk up and catch a drum when nobody else is catching one.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
yeah, some very very skilled anglers. I frequent that place.
So talk to me, and we're gonna get. I'm sort of going slow and teasing everybody. We're gonna get to the main event, which is the rod, and get into the length and the
Yeah.
handles and the attachment of the reel and all this stuff. But just briefly on the terminal rig, right? So, are you guys regulated for circles only for hooks, or can you use
You
J
can.
hooks?
We're not. I don't believe we're regulated, and I'm pretty certain of that because a lot of guys still fish J hooks.
Yeah,
I fish circle hooks because
yeah.
that's what I like.
And are you
It's
using
what
like a
I like.
clip down kind of rig with a Sputnik
No,
kind of
no.
weight, or talk to me about the rig?
It's basically a fish finder
Okay,
rig with a very, very short lead.
okay,
When most fish finder rigs are going to be 12 to 18 inches and they're floating all around and you can't
right,
cast them because they helicopter going through the air.
right, right.
Maybe taking that lead down to about an inch to an inch and a half.
Interesting.
Now your sinker and the weight make almost they're very compact, small um, payload as it's flying,
Yeah.
and it helps to give you more distance. As soon as you put a long fish finder rig on there, a long leadered fish finder, your distance is gone because it
Okay.
just helicopters as it flies through the air.
Yeah. Okay.
A fish finder rig, typically 8/0 to 10/0 hooks, circle hooks, and an 8-ounce sinker is what
And
we
if,
throw.
and if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about as a fish finder rig, like walk us through it because you sell them. You can get them at Carolina Cast Pro, and you can see
Yes.
exactly how these work. But for those who may not be watching or who aren't familiar, walk us through how one of these rigs is kind of put together.
Okay, basically the end of your shock leader, you slide through a sliding. There's different types of sliders. I like a McMahon snap swivel, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where it slides on there, runs up and down your shock leader, and that's where you put your sinker. On the end of it, you tie your hook to it,
Yeah.
and that's where you put your bait. So that when you're casting, that sinker slides right down against the bait, and it just forms a nice little compact
Yep.
payload.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a slider fish finder rig.
Yeah, and if you can see a picture of it and you can buy them pre-done, pre-crimp, pre-everything at
Yeah, I have them.
carolinacastpro.com or just Google the quote fingers Tommy Farmer fish finder
Yeah,
drum rig. He's
yeah,
got his own rig named after him. You'll see it.
yeah.
But thank you for that. That's super helpful. So
Yep.
now the main course, the pièce de résistance, the rod. Okay, so this is a specialized piece of equipment, and I got to tell you, there's a part of me that was chuckling. If I fish a 10-foot rod off the beach here in the Gulf Coast, now, of course, we have very little current, very flat beaches, very calm conditions relative to what you're dealing with on the regular there in these turbulent waters that have these massive, fish. But a 10-foot rod is long here, right? And you're like, someone walks out there with their little bitty 10-foot rod. I was like, oh Lord, here we go. So what's 14 feet standard? What's standard?
when, when I started fishing Cape Hatteras, the standard was about 12 feet.
Okay,
And from my distance casting at that time, it wasn't a background. It was something I was just getting hardcore into.
sure.
Those rods were up around 14 feet, and I was
Okay.
comfortable casting them. So I started bringing in and introducing some of the 13-foot rods
Hmm.
over here, and it took off. I'm not taking full credit for that because I can't. But I did start to introduce some of the longer rods, and it took off. And now the standard is 13 feet.
Yeah.
On occasion, somebody they'll cobble together something that's longer than that, and it works. And the additional length of a rod helps you in several ways. It gives you more a longer lever to cast. If you know how to use that lever, you
Yeah.
can get more distance. And also, when you're standing there in the conga line and you're holding the rod up, if you can cast out past everybody, hold your rod up, you can actually get by with throwing a 7-ounce instead of an 8. Then you can drift faster than everybody, but you're out past everybody, so you don't cause any kind of
Ah,
problems.
interesting.
So yeah, there's a lot of little tricks that you can do, but yeah, that's how we do it.
So obviously one of the big topics that always comes into play, and I know you stand at ICRBE and spend a lot of time talking to people, and again, this is one of the great things about going to ICRBE is you can have people like Tommy. He has been there personally. You can go talk to him about how to set up one of his Gen 3 blanks, right? For exactly how you're fishing, what
Yep.
you're fishing for. Like he's got them. He's got
Yep.
these unbelievable over the water rod holders or over the wave. What do you call them?
Yep. Over
OTW,
the
right?
waves.
Yeah,
Yep.
over the
Over
waves.
the waves.
Which now y'all are doing this conga line thing. I'm like, when do you even need a rod holder? Is that just for when you're tying
We
on
don't
rigs or
use
going to the bathroom?
we don't use them when we're drum fishing hardcore. What's funny is that on a typical day at Cape Point, in the afternoon, it's nice, sun shining, people back your trucks up or have them down in the water, and people start sand spike fishing
Right.
off Cape Point. And then the drum fishermen show up, an hour or so before dusk, and they're like, you're going to have to move this. You've
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
get
The
out,
current and conditions and
yeah.
number of anglers will dictate you
And
have to move this. Yeah.
people get mad. People get mad, but they end up moving, or somebody's going to, they're going to move it for them because
Yeah, I was gonna say
you
that's gonna solve. That's the problem's gonna solve itself again and
you,
again if
you
you
get
don't solve
50,
it.
you get 50 anglers out there that are pissed
Yeah,
off because somebody won't move.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's a
something's
volatile.
going to
That's
do.
none of us having a good time at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that comes back really to what I mentioned a little while ago about just observing,
yeah,
taking that hour. It's fine, at noon to have a sand spike out there, but don't do it at 5 o'clock in the evening
yeah.
when the typical dusk bite may happen.
And the current's happening. Yeah,
And
yeah,
the current's right. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, the rod. So when we start talking about a 14-foot rod, this is a very different animal than an 8
Yep.
foot or 9 foot rod, right?
Yep.
So
It is.
if we start at the butt and work to the tip, so
Mhm.
what have you learned? How should we be thinking about the handles, right? Because I've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things. Like sometimes with
Okay.
these rods, people are using temporary reel attachment points so they can have the reel
Mhm.
in one position to cast,
Yep.
another position to fish. How do you set up your factory rods, and how do you personally like your rods? And again, acknowledging that there's personal preference and not everybody's fishing the same way in the same place and all that, but
Mhm.
you are an expert. You do have 10,000 hours doing this.
Mhm.
How do you like to set up your handles for something like a 14-foot rod for 8 and bait?
Okay. Okay. I'm going to stick to the 13s. I used to sell a 14, but I quit doing it because it just didn't sell
Okay,
that well.
13,
So
13,
a
even better
13-foot
because
rod,
my
a
back
13-foot
just got a
rod.
little better. My shoulders just got a little
Yeah.
better with that
A
foot reduction.
a 13-foot rod designed to throw 8 and bait,
Yep.
and they are typically rated up to around 12 ounces or more.
Okay.
It's got to be fairly stiff.
Yep.
Okay, it's a fairly stiff, powerful rod. Modern carbon fiber has taken a lot of the weight away from it. They're still
Yeah.
lightweight, but they're very, very powerful rods. And what you see a lot of with guys that when they first go out there, they'll have a rod. It may be 12 feet long, it may be 13, but the little butt handle on it's only 20 inches long, and that's not enough when you're throwing 10 to 12 ounces. A short handle, which really applies to smaller rods, 10, 11, 12-foot rods. You use speed to generate distance. You can get from here to here quick with a lighter payload,
Right.
with a shorter handle.
Right.
Now, the bigger the rod, you need leverage. You don't
Yeah.
need speed. You need leverage to be able to create the torque and leverage to get that rod around and be able to execute it. So, as a rule of thumb, if you take the butt of a rod, I'll show you right here. If you take the butt of a rod, it's just an old blank, and
Okay.
you put it in the center of your sternum, right
Okay.
here, right in the middle of your chest plate, and you stretch your hand straight out, and I'll slide this way so that you can see my hand. You see it?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Hand is, that's where the center of your reel seat is.
Okay.
That on a rod set up to throw 8 and bait. If any of you guys are having a custom rod built to throw 8 and bait, and the builder does not ask you about your handle length, then you need to
You
find
need to
somebody else
change
to build your
builders.
rod.
Yeah,
You need to
exactly.
find somebody else to build your rod, because this is very, very important. What
Yeah.
it does is allows you. Imagine, can you see me?
Yes, sir.
If I'm here with a 10-foot rod and I'm casting it here to here, that's quick.
Yep.
With the big rod, I'm here, and this allows
Powerful
me to get into
slip.
this position,
Yeah.
and execute a punch pull, and complete the cast. Because
Yeah.
with a short butt rod for throwing heavy weights, it just doesn't work.
And you fix
And
the reel for the angler at that point. It is permanently attached at that point.
the reel seat is permanently attached. Now,
Okay.
there are options. You can do what they call a sliding reel seat.
Yeah.
Some guys, some tournament casters, and I'm in this group, throw on the casting field what we call low reel. Okay, the reel is actually mounted at the bottom of the butt.
I've
You're
seen this.
using
Okay. Yeah.
your left hand. My left hand is used to control the reel.
Huh.
I don't fish that way because
Right.
you don't have enough butt
To fight
to
a
be able
fish
to,
or yeah.
to fight a fish. You just
Yeah.
don't have it. So I throw high reel when I fish and low reel when I tournament cast.
Okay.
I guess I'm ambidextrous that way. But for guys who wanted to be able to move it, they have like sliding reel seats that you can
Yeah.
move it up and down. To
Yeah.
me, that's all fine and well until you get a splash bite. You got your reel down low, and before you can get the reel seat moved up,
You're
you're
bit.
turning with a 50-pound drum. You can
Yeah.
get yourself in a bind pretty quick like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that distance, that measurement is very important for the handle length of a heaver.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
as you go down in weight payload, that
You can shorten it.
distance shrinks.
Okay.
So my 8 to 12, which is my heavy heaver, is going to be 32 and a half inches. Because that's
Okay. For you personally.
I'm
Okay. Yep.
for me, but I'm kind of an average guy. I'm thick, but I got short arms,
Yeah.
so it ends up I end up at about an average so for me 32 and a half. But my next rod down, the 13-foot 6 to 10 is at 31 and a half.
Okay.
And then as they go down, they keep dropping. You go down to my 10-footer. I think it's 22 inches on my 10-foot. So it
Okay.
drops considerably, and it's all about the lighter payloads being easier to cast, and you can utilize more speed than torque and leverage.
Well, one of the blanks you have that I was looking at that I was so fascinated by was you got an 8-footer now for
Oh yeah,
half an ounce to
yes,
1.5, and like for
yeah.
pompano and stuff we do here, that thing,
Oh
man, it's
yeah.
got my name written all over it.
Uh-huh.
How short do you go on one like 8 feet?
Well, I tell you what, give me a second. I'll show you. So it's about, I'd say I don't have my tape here with me, but I'd say about 12 inches
Okay.
ish on this 8-footer.
Yeah.
It's not long, but it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be when you're
It
throwing 1
rod
ounce.
that short. It's back to
Yeah,
speed, not to
yeah.
torque.
It's
Yep.
speed, not the torque. That's
Yep.
exactly right. So yeah, this and all of my, as a plug, all of my rods are high modulus carbon fiber, and they all come in this nice heavy fabric bag.
Yeah, and
So,
he has them all at ICRBE. You ought to come
yep,
see his booth, and you can walk out
yep,
with them and not even have to deal with shipping. They are 2-piece,
yep,
and
50,
very
50.
very well made to Tommy's standards, which are very high. Okay, so we've talked about the handle, and that's super helpful. Thank you. Now, of course, guide train, critical, right?
Yep,
So we're using a non-level wind reel. Talk me through, again, acknowledging this is personal preference based on your experience and the way you fish. But
yep.
again, anyone who doesn't think you're an expert needs to
Well,
pay closer attention, in my opinion. But talk to me about guide trains, and specifically, Tommy, I get more questions than anything else from builders about guide trains and about finish work. And of the guide trains, it is surf rods. So much
okay.
of the time, whether it's conventional revolving high-speed reels like we're talking about, or whether it's even big spinning reels. So
Yeah.
we can keep it focused on the overhead reels here. Um, Talk to me about the way you think about guide trains, guide size, distance to the first guide, and what of the guides are placed for casting distance versus what's maybe static deflection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I learned a lot when in my competitive years, even
I
before I
guess.
started developing rods, because we would move. You kind of got a basic layout,
Right.
and we would move guides a little bit. You could take, especially on the big, powerful tournament rods. If you move the bottom guide, the only guide that's on the butt section, if you move it 2 inches down closer to the reel, you've changed the power of that rod. You've made it much more powerful
Really
because you're now grabbing more power out of the butt. The further that gathering guide, the bottom guide, the further up it is, the less you're tapping into the butt power on that rod.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you don't want, of course, when the rod's bent, you don't want the line to touch the blank at any point. So
Right.
you lay out the number of guides based on that principle. But that bottom guide, that really, really does affect the power that a blank can produce in the form of a finished rod.
Okay.
You can move the guides up and down. You can if you add a guide in the tip section, you're going to follow more closely the actual power band of the blank, because you're forcing the rod to bend to the blank. The less guides you use, it'll actually soften it up a little bit and make it a little. You can take a rod that's difficult to load, that's difficult to cast. You can remove a guide and maybe slide that bottom guide up, and you can soften that rod up and make it much more user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
and what I would actually change that. I would sometimes during the course of a tournament, I would move that bottom guide depending on how I was feeling. If I
Okay.
was feeling strong and I thought I could squeeze more out of it, I'd take, because we would tape those guides on. We didn't thread them on. We would use tape and tape those guides on. I'd take the tape off, move it down 2 inches, and tape it back on.
Yeah.
And and just go from there.
I
So
love hearing you say this because I tell people all the time. I was just at a mud hole advanced technique seminar and I was telling people, like, take a roll of tape, take your guides, take your rod, go out in the yard or to a football field or out in the street, whatever, and spend 30 minutes or 1 hour
yeah,
just casting. And it's like all your questions about guide placement and guide setup and rod stuff is you're going to answer them. And you'll learn
yeah,
more in 1 hour of hands-on actually doing it than you will
yes,
10,000 hours in a chat room or on a forum or
yeah, oh
emailing
yeah,
with people. But
yeah,
so like with your, like, you have this 13-foot 8 to 12, the real
yep,
heavy
yep.
Cast Pro Gen 3 blank, that's this heaver
Mhm.
kind of rod, right? So what size and where are you putting that first guide typically relative to this placement we talked about based on the angle?
I use Fuji K-Wags because it
Oh man.
makes for a true universal guide.
Yep.
You can spinner or bait caster,
Right.
um, and I'm about 6 or 7 inches down from the joint is where
Okay.
that first guide goes. Now you go to my 6 to 10 and it moves up a couple of inches. The
Okay.
3 to 6 13-footer is actually at the female side of the joint on the butt. My big rods are all parallel butt tapered tip.
Okay.
So the on the 13-footer 3 to 6 is right at the joint.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it really just, it depends on the power of the rod. But on the big rod that you're asking about, it's 6 or 7 inches down from the joint.
Okay. And what size are you typically using?
20 on the big rods. The gathering guide's 25
Okay.
down to 20, 16, and then 12, 12, 12. I think the tip is a 12 also. I think it's either a
Okay.
10 or 20.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yep.
And they're either 7 or 8 plus tip,
Okay.
the guides. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the 8 to 12 is 7 plus tip because it was stiff in the tip. So I softened it up a little bit.
Sure.
And the 6 to 10 is 8 plus the
Interesting.
tip
Yeah.
guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
it was all about, when I was developing and out in the field doing the testing, it's what felt good to me.
Sure.
I may not be the most scientific, but it is based on real world
Yeah, no,
experience.
practical experience, and that's
Yeah.
priceless, right? And oh, by the way, we can all go get it. We just got to take the time, you know.
Well, yeah. And you were talking about 10,000 repetitions
Oh yeah.
earlier or 10,000 hours. I, uh, I actually, 10 years ago, I started a book. It may never come to fruition, but I learned about the 10,000 hours or 10,000 repetition philosophy. And I studied on that some, and I started doing the math. And about 2013 or 14, I passed 10,000 practice casts.
There you go.
And I ended up somewhere north of 20,000 when I pretty much quit practicing.
Right.
But that, there's so much to that. I mean, I guess that would be a story for a whole other podcast. But that is, you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
There are people who are naturally talented. There are people who are much more naturally talented than I am. But I just outworked them all in my era.
Yep. Well, and there's something to be said for that, right? And I love you bringing that forward because I think sometimes it's easy to forget all the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears that got put into it, right? But even like you said, even if you are talented, you still got to put the work in, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the rewards are there, right? And that's part of the great part of it, right?
I'm
So
coaching a young man right now, kind of a side story, but his name's Connor Brown. He is 2 years ago, he came to me and said, on a casting lesson. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea, but I said, okay, meet me at the field. We'll do this. And this young man starts getting out the truck, and he keeps right on getting out the truck. He when he gets out the truck, he's 6'7",
oh goodness,
250 pounds,
big old
and
boy.
big country strong guy from South Carolina who is a lineman by trade for
Oh
the power
wow.
company. And I
Oh
used to
yeah.
operate. I
I was
used to
gonna say
operate.
this is your world,
I
right?
operated
Yeah.
well. I operated a power plant. I was inside. I was Homer Simpson for 16 years, turning the knobs and pushing the buttons and all that. But this
Go.
guy's a lineman, and I got the utmost respect for these guys. So anyway, he comes to me in the first day. We work on the fundamentals, and he throws 300 and some feet, and I'm like, okay, you did good, He called me 2 weeks later and said, I want another lesson. I said, well, you need to let that kind of soak in. He said, no, I got this. He said, I want to a little more advanced. So he came back to me By the end of the second session, he was almost at 600 feet.
Holy
Second,
cow.
it took me 4 years to get to 600 feet.
Well, you're
And
not 6'7" and
no, but then he called me again about a month later and he said, I want to learn about this tournament stuff. So we started, he came back for a specific lesson on tournament casting,
yeah.
and he was over 700 feet on the third, it was either the third or fourth lesson. And now he is he's number 2 in the country. He and another guy that I did help to coach, Ryan Lambert, they went to South America. Oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. Argentina. They went to
Yeah.
Argentina this past year, and he took second in the world in one of the categories in the 175 gram weight class. He took
Unbelievable.
second, and Ryan took second in one of the other ones. They just did great. But this guy, talking about natural talent,
Yeah, yeah.
he was a discus thrower in high school, and man, he is
So he
just
gets some of the pendulum motion and the
oh yeah,
balance and the yeah, yeah.
he's got the most natural talent of anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I look to him and or Ryan, who is also an exceptionally talented caster, to be the first American caster to break 900 feet in competition. It's
Oh
coming
wow.
soon.
And what's this
Yeah.
kid's name? The 6'7" kid?
It's Connor Brown.
Connor Brown. Okay.
Connor Brown.
Y'all
Yeah,
look out for Connor Brown. You heard it here
oh
first from
yeah,
Tommy
yeah,
Farmer. You're
yeah.
gonna have a future
There's
world
a
champion.
matter of fact,
900
there's a
footer.
casting there's a casting tournament down in Green Sea, South Carolina next weekend, and he'll be there. I might ride out there and just to watch and observe
Well, that's
these
got to
guys.
make you proud, man.
Oh yeah,
Anytime
it does.
anytime the student does well or surpasses the teacher in pace or
Well,
distance or anything, that's you've done your job well.
here's the thing: his longest casting competition to this point is 859.25 feet.
Okay.
Mine is 859.52 feet, so I still have bragging rights. I still, I know in my heart
You
that's
got him by
oh,
0.28, baby. Let's
I
go.
got him by a quarter of a foot, and
Hey, we'll
but
take
yeah,
it.
that's going to fall, and I will be proud of him when it does.
It's
Ryan Lambert actually owns the record now,
yeah.
so it's pretty cool. There's
That's
been a
so
long
crazy
stint.
that at the end of a cast that long, you're separated by 3 inches. I mean, think about
Oh,
that. Like that's crazy, man.
yeah. Now this was it. This was in 2 completely different tournaments,
Well,
20
sure,
years
sure.
apart.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. But he is
What Tommy just said is he'd like to be able to compete with this gear they got now, but still be in his
I wish
Constitution of 2006.
what I wish is that we had a time machine that
Well,
we could
buddy.
grab about 4 or 5 different casters from different
Yeah.
eras and get them all together with the same gear. It would be
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I don't know a lot about distance casting. Candidly, there's a guy who runs a company called Breakaway. I think his name is Nick Cannon. I
Nick
can't remember if he's
Nick Nick Meyer.
Nick Meyer. Okay, you know what
Yeah,
I'm
we're
talking about.
friends.
He does
Yeah, we're friends.
he does a Breakaway Cannon is his thing. That's where Cannon came from.
Yes,
He's got
yes,
if
yes,
you're a
yes,
cheater and trying to
yes.
cast a spinning rod, he's got a release device for that. But
Yeah, works good. Works really good.
yeah, no, and it does. And he had a video or some stuff on you, and I followed it. Some of it. I was doing it for land-based shark fishing, and thankfully, or not, I got to the point where it's like the fish we were targeting and the gear we needed to land those fish. We got out of the casting. You weren't casting rigs anymore, right? It
Yeah,
became kayaking, and now it's
sure.
becoming droning baits out.
Yeah.
But I did enough practice and trying to learn some of that stuff. When you guys are fishing, is it mostly a pendulum cast, or how would you describe the type of cast you're using? You guys with these 8 and bait heavers, when you're doing this long casting for fishing, is it what style of cast are you using typically? I
It
mean, I know
is.
every angler may be different, but what's like kind of the common thing in these tough conditions that you
They
guys
call it. They actually call it a Hatteras cast.
Hatteras cast? Okay,
Yeah, it is a basic beach cast, a pendulum cast, and there are guys who will tell you that a Hatteras cast is a pendulum cast. It is not. A pendulum
okay,
cast has 3 elements. You got an outswing, in swing, and a
and
power
then
stroke.
right, yeah,
On the Hatteras cast, you just toss it back, turn, and hit. So
okay, okay.
it's like one
Two-part
leg of the
motion. Yeah.
yeah
Okay.
one leg of the pendulum is missing in a
Okay.
Hatteras cast.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what 90% of the people on the beach are throwing would
Okay.
be that basic beach cast or Hatteras type cast.
Have you ever gone out and fished the West Coast? Because it's really interesting hearing you talk about that. I went for the first time this spring, and we chartered one of these long range boats out of San Diego. where these guys are fishing longer, sometimes 10, sometimes 11, sometimes shorter, 9-foot rods, throwing surface irons, right, for
Right.
yellowtail and for bluefin tuna. But you're in a boat that's crowded with a lot of
Sure.
people. And these
Yep.
guys have developed this cast where the lure basically starts by your ear and you make sure no one's right behind you in that pendulum,
Yep.
and then they can get this thing out. It's like, I hadn't thought of those distance casting techniques in a long time. That made me think of it, but they're casting in a way that's fairly like a modified way of a Hatteras cast
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
not put people in harm's way, swinging a big long rod with a big bait with drop, of the lure.
Yeah, basically it's a kind of a combination of a pendulum type swing
Yeah.
and an overhead thump cast
Yeah.
where you just rock it back and forth. It comes up close to you and then you
And
hit.
send it.
You have
Yeah.
to be careful with that type of cast because
Yeah.
it generates a lot of power. And if you hit the rod too early with that type of a cast, if the sinker's way inside the tip close to your body, you can snap the tip on a rod pretty
Well,
quickly like
it's like
that.
high sticking, right? I mean, it's kind of
It-
it's bending it the way it doesn't want to be bent. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Yep. Yep.
some of these cats that know what they're doing, it's very impressive, and they're throwing what we would consider to be a fairly light lure, right? They're throwing these surface irons that often are only 2, 3, 4 ounces, and they can.
Yep.
The guys who know what they're
Oh
doing
yeah.
can get it, man.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Although they're throwing these really, really carbon fiber hasn't made it for complete adoption out there yet. Like these are glass rods that have butts
Oh my
like
God.
this. Like, dude, they're
Yeah.
so heavy. That's the one thing
Yeah.
I couldn't believe. I was like, I can't believe you can throw that heavy rod all day when you could figure out a carbon fiber solution with a ferrule that's not one, and they're
Yeah.
one piece, right? And so it's
Oh
like
yeah.
you literally, these guys buy the car they drive, the smallest car you can get to pay California gas and parking prices that'll still fit a 10-foot jig stick in it, right?
Yeah.
That's how they've evolved, right? Well, man, that's absolutely fascinating stuff. The guidelines on the handle length are really helpful. I have heard people talk about this distance and this measure and these different measures. To hear you talk about and explain why for a Hatteras heaver and the 8 and bait, super helpful. And the way you scale it down for shorter rods. So thank you for that. It's actually less guides than I would have thought. So that's kind of an eye opener for me too. And that's not just me being a guide salesman for a living. Like, you got at least 2 or 3 more guides on every rod, Tommy, come on. But, and all the way you're thinking about this is super helpful. I mean, I guess the only other thing that I'd ask you is, you spend a lot of time out there. You're a coach. You teach a lot of people. Common mistakes, common problems. Like, if you had to give like a top 3, you already gave a really good one when you said pay attention, watch. Before you jump in and get in the middle of it, watch and go with the flow and learn from seeing what everybody's doing. You can learn if you'll. That's really good advice, right? But with these beginners that you coach and teach and people you fish with and that, if you had to point out just a couple of really common 2 or 3 mistakes people make or places you tell people to pay attention, what other things would you call out? Because I know you must have seen it all.
Well, I've got a system I use when I teach. I call it the fundamentals of power casting.
Okay.
And there's basically 5. There's basically 5 fundamentals, and I'll just step through them quickly and briefly.
Sure, please.
Fundamental number 1 is your footwork.
Okay.
Okay. One of the common things, it's funny when I go out on the beach, at Cape Hatteras, you can drive miles and miles and miles on the beach. I'll ride down the beach and there'll be trucks and people. And if I happen to see somebody preparing to cast, I'll just stop. I'm not going to pull over and bother them. I just stop and watch.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of guys who will get ready to cast and they'll start running down toward the water. They'll get a little gallop going and throw because they think that that's forward
creating momentum somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. But what it does, that they might get 1 out of 10 casts decent because they happen to get their footwork right on that 1 cast.
Right.
But your footwork is very, very important. The best way I know to describe it is if you think about a baseball player at the batting, getting ready to swing with an open stance.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're a right-handed caster, if your right foot's at the center of a clock face and 12 o'clock is your target, that left foot's going to be over at about 10:30. What that does, that gives you room
Open
to turn
stance. Gotcha.
through.
Okay. Yep.
It allows you to turn through and get your chest squared to the target. If your feet are parallel to the target, you can't really turn. I can't. The older you get, the harder
your lower
it is.
body. Yeah. Right.
But yeah. So your footwork and having a solid base is very, very important. And on the footwork, probably one of the biggest errors is that when people cast, they walk through and they step through when they take the cast. Both feet should stay planted firmly on the ground. If you're stepping, and the reason why is if you're stepping through, you're falling forward.
You're out of balance.
Yeah. And when you're falling forward, one of the biggest power um, sources on a cast is the left-hand pull.
Yep.
And if you're stepping forward, if you're falling forward, you're shortening that pull.
You're
because
negating that pull, yeah.
You're falling into a pulling left hand.
Okay.
So footwork is very, very important. You got to have a solid base to cast from.
Right.
Fundamental number two is your body. People think that they generate all their power with their arms. Your body is the engine. Your body is the power plant. Your body is what provides the power through the first 90% of the cast. Done properly, your arms are basically passive through the first 90% of the cast. They're moving from here to here as you rotate, here to here, and then that last 10% is where they become very, very
push pull.
Up to that point, your body is generating all the power up to that point. So your body, I look at it kind of as a spring uncoiling from the ground up, not a jumping hopping spring, but a torsion spring uncoiling from the ground up.
Yep.
So when you watch a Major League Baseball player swing, he's not swinging like this. It's coming through his body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Professional fighters, if you watch a guy like Mike Tyson, when he was in his prime, he didn't knock people out like this.
No.
It came through his body. And it's the same thing with a cast. You're using the body to generate the power.
Okay.
Kind of like a javelin thrower is using his body to generate the power.
Yeah.
The third fundamental is your arms and the proper use of your arms in the cast and where you apply the power. One of the secrets to long distance casting is learning to put your rod and sinker through the largest arc you can generate, accelerating through that arc and finishing with a burst of power and speed late. Your arms have to play a very important role in that, and that is staying active, staying extended till you turn and get in the right position, and then
go.
The punch pull comes in late.
Okay.
So then number 4 fundamental is going to be acceleration, learning how to start slow, accelerate through the cast, and finish fast. One of the single biggest flaws people have in their cast, if they're trying to throw far, they get it in their head. They got to hit it hard. They got to hit it. So they hit it hard from back here. Well, if you do that with a bait caster and you're throwing 8 ounces in a chunk of bait, your thumb is not physically strong enough to prevent that reel. It's kind of like a car tire traction on a road. You don't have traction. But if you let that sinker get moving, you let it get in motion and out on its arc, if you wait until late in the cast to hit it, now you can hit as hard as you want. Your thumb won't slip. It's all about the proper time to apply the power. Start slow, accelerate, finish hard and fast. And the last fundamental is a number. That's 45 degrees.
Okay.
45 degrees comes up over and over. If you think about our footwork setup, when you got your right foot at clock face center, your left foot at 12, and then you move it over to 10:30, that's a 45-degree offset from target. Okay. That's the first application. The second application is your target. When people are fishing, 95% of the guys that are out there on the beach casting are throwing too low. They're throwing line drive cast. Your target is not a breaker or a sandbar. Your target is a spot 45 degrees in the sky above your directional target. So you got to pick a target to line your footwork up to, but then that target changes to 45 degrees higher in the sky, and that's where your energy flows to that target. Now, when you hit the rod, you want to stick the cast to 45 degrees. You want the rod to stick to 45 degrees when you finish the cast. And also the arc. You were talking about the guys with the 10-foot rods throwing the overhead thump type cast. That doesn't give you the best arc. Flat sidearm doesn't give you the best arc. Halfway between those two at 45 degrees is where you get the maximum arc. So those are the 5 fundamentals. There are a lot of little nuances that come into a lesson that really are dictated by the student, what their needs are. If you got somebody like Connor Brown that's just absorbing like a sponge, you can move through quicker and get to some more advanced techniques. But the hardest guy to teach, and this is just brutally honest, is the fisherman that's in his 50s or 60s and has been doing it for 40 years.
Doing it wrong. And same with golfers, same with hitters.
Exactly. It is one of the hardest things to do is to break
bad habits,
ingrained old habits. It's extremely, extremely hard. But most of the time, I can get them on the right track, and then they just got to work on it. The easiest guy to teach is the young, athletic, 18 to 20-year-old guy that doesn't fish. he has no bad habits.
Yeah.
You can mold this guy into.
Clean slate. Yeah.
Yep. That's so yeah. Those are the five fundamentals, and that's basically what I teach.
Well, that's fascinating, and you're generous to share all that with us on this, so thank you.
I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, and
I
look,
made myself a promise. I made myself a promise a long time ago when I was coming up, when I was trying to become the best caster I could be. A lot of guys would not help you if they were
yeah,
better than you and their numbers were better than your numbers. They would not help you.
yeah,
And if you ask them, they would tell you, "I'm not going to teach you how to beat me."
right, yeah.
So they wouldn't give it. But I made myself a promise that if I ever got good, I was going to spread the word. I was
Well,
going to help
a,
everybody I could.
a lot of rod builders are the same way, right? It was so hard when they learned, if they're our age, right, that they're like, well, you should have to learn the hard way like I did. It shouldn't all be out there on the internet and accessible to you. But I'm sort of personally subscribe to the theory of like knowledge not shared is knowledge lost or wasted. So and again,
Exactly right.
some of it you got to learn on your own. Like you can't all
Yeah.
be handed to you, but certainly you're very generous to share all that with us and help people along. I do have, if you don't, I'm switching gears from the broad philosophical to something real, like topical and specific, if you don't mind. So
Let's
I've
go.
been looking at your catalog, and I'm quite serious that I want to build a proper rod and get a proper reel and a proper setup and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Knowing that so I was looking at some of these Achios reels like the Nikon, F16 and F15 in
Yep.
this. Some of these are tournament reels, some of these are fishing reels. For if someone's interested and they're looking for tournament versus if someone's interested in learning more and they want to get a piece of fishing kit, like which ones of these should I be focused on as an angler if I was wanting to get a hold of one for actual
All
fishing off the beach?
all of the Achios or Achios reels are fishing
They're
reels.
fishing reels. They're not tournament reels. Okay.
Tournament reels like this. At some point, most of them were fishing reels. They have been tuned and tweaked and
Yeah.
modified, kind of like taking an old GTO and turning it into a hot rod, or an old Camaro or something, and you take the base and you modify it.
Okay.
That's how these reels really come to be. And there are guys out there that are exceptionally. I was good in my day, but there are guys out there who really can tune reels.
It's man, that's a whole other rabbit hole, dude. And
It
I'll
is.
tell
It
you,
is.
I hope this generation's gonna pick up on it because it's one of the things everywhere I go, people are having a hard time getting people to come in and do rod repair, like to have someone in their shop that does rod
Oh
repair.
yeah.
And real
Yeah.
repair is even worse, right? And we
Oh
have
yeah.
this whole
You're exactly right.
generation of very capable craftsmen that are sort of retiring. Who,
Hmm.
and no one's taking their place. And anytime kids
Well,
come to me and say, I kind of would find some work in fishing, I'm like, dude, get into rod repair and reel repair. If you can learn how to
yep.
repair reels, you can be as busy as you want to, buddy.
I got a buddy. I got a buddy who does that, and he stays busy.
No, he'll
He
stay as
stays
busy
busy.
as he wants to. Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy. Well, man, Tommy, this has just been extremely helpful. And I have to ask you one question, since for those who aren't watching any of this, who like most people listen as podcasts, but you've got quite a bit of Corvette memorabilia in the background behind you here. Are you you big Corvette guy?
Well, I'm a Pontiac guy, a GTO
Okay.
guy from back in the
Okay.
day, but up on the lift, I don't know
Oh,
if you can
holy
see it.
cow.
Yeah, yeah, that's my vet. That's one of my babies.
Oh man. Well,
it's a two,
Now I
it's a
know.
2007 Z06 Corvette.
Oh wow. My
Yeah,
my
it's
my son is very into fast cars and is like, Dad, you need a car, and it's like, no, I need a truck that can tow a boat. But you can and this is his latest angle is like these newer Corvettes that are so good, that they
Mhm.
really change the game. He's like, oh, they're not nearly as expensive as. And they outperform cars that cost 3 times as much. It's like, yeah, but it's still a two-seater that can't tow a boat and you can't put big long
Yeah,
fishing rods in. Like, what am I gonna do with it, dude? Like,
yeah, they
you
are.
know,
They're toys, is what they are.
well, but look,
I- I-
it's a good looking toy. I would like to go
yeah,
riding around in somebody else's. I'm just probably not going to own one.
I've got a GT. I've got an old GTO, 66 model GTO. That's really
Yeah,
my baby. I'm having some work
that's
done
a
on it
good
right
looking
now.
car. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my baby.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Well, man, thank you so much. And listen, if you want to learn more, if you want to get access to any of these products, if you want to find out more about anything we talked about today, carolinacastpro.com. It's just like it sounds. carolinacastpro.com. And
Yep.
you got everything there. You got the rods, you got the blanks, you got the reels. You can find more information about Tommy. They do have enough space on that website to list all of his tournament wins. If you're interested, you can see his very impressive list of accomplishments. They're running a sale right now.
Yep.
free
Free shipping
shipping
on
on
rods,
all, yeah,
rods and
on
blanks.
rods and blanks, from Black Friday through January 1st. So
Yep.
take advantage of that. And Tommy, are we able to look forward to seeing you at ICRBE again next year?
My plan is to be there. They contacted me yesterday and asked me if I'd do a seminar.
Oh,
Um,
good. That'd be
so,
great. I
so,
think it'd be a
so
great topic, man. Yeah.
yeah, I've done it. I've been going to the Rod Builders Expo for probably 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I've been doing the expos probably 6 or 7 of those years.
Well, I
So
love having you there because anytime someone comes up to me and starts asking me about surf rods, I'm like, that guy right there. That's your guy. Go talk to him because he's forgotten more about it than I'll ever know.
it's so much fun. I love the rod show. There's good people, and what's funny is you get in there and you run in the booth, and all of a sudden it'll slow down for a minute, and then a wave of people will come, and you're right back wide open
Oh yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I was really worried when I kind of heard that it was for sale and worried about who was going to take over and everything. But David Boyle and his wife, the people who bought it, great guy, very
okay.
organized. Like I'm super excited about it. We're going to be there. I think it's going to be great. And I can't wait to see you there and pick up some more rod holders.
I will. I'll be there with bells on.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they will walk off where I fish for sharks at night, which POs me to no end. But yeah, but so I'm having to resupply them. So if anyone sees any used over the waves Tommy Farmer rod holders, which are literally the best heaviest duty sand spike type rod holder I've ever
Right
seen,
there.
man,
I've got
that thing's the real deal, man.
them.
That's like if a machinist made sand spike, that's what
The
you
great
get.
thing about the over the waves is that you can literally rub your hands all over any surface that contacts the rod butt,
Yeah,
and you couldn't cut yourself if you
nope,
tried. Everything's
nope.
polished
It's
and
beautiful.
smooth,
They really are beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, they do good. But you were talking earlier about sand spikes and losing
Yeah.
one that every without fail every year. And I'm gonna put this out for a PSA. Okay,
Okay.
a PSA for all surf fishermen. When you cast a baited line into the water and you walk back to your cart or your truck or whatever, and you put your rod into a sand spike, never, ever ever walk away from that rod without doing two things: loosening the drag and
Yep.
turning the clicker on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Every year I have customers contact me. I didn't get it. I didn't get that call this year. I was a little surprised, but usually I'll get a call from a customer and they'll be very sheepish. And it'll be like, Tommy, um, I lost my rod and reel, and I know where it's going, but I'll always follow it up. Well, it's probably wherever you left it.
Yeah.
If you'll go look, and no, I lost it to the ocean. And then they tell me this story, and I already know what happened.
Yeah.
And I've heard this has been asked to me, is that covered under warranty?
Oh no.
And there's
Yeah.
a lot of things I'll cover most anything, but I don't cover that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
I've been land-based shark fishing for 25 years.
yep,
If you can make a mistake, I've made it, and
yep,
I had thought I had learned all my hard lessons, but 2 years ago, I had set a couple. It's starting to get dark, and we wait until dark to run them out. And I was fishing near, kind of down towards the Fort Morgan area of Alabama, and I had 3 rods out. And this one, what hurts so much about this. This is a brand new
oh my God.
accurate ATD 50 wide. It was blue. Had
Mm-hmm.
built a rod to match it. Like everything perfect. Kayak out this bait, drop it, back the drag down, set the clicker. And the only thing that I can think happened, Tommy, was that every once in a while we'll get a hammerhead that will, and I was using a piece of stingray for bait, which seems to predispose you to hammerheads and tigers more than any
Yeah,
other
yeah,
bait. And they, the only thing I can think is that fish just initially took off with it so hard that it
yep.
actually backlashed it, even though the
That's
drag was backed off and the clicker was on. It
yep.
hits. It went from slack to full with enough
Oh
that it
yeah,
backlashed it and took it out. And
yeah.
buddy,
If
I
you
was
back off the
running.
drag too much, that's exactly what will happen.
Yeah. So, oh boy, and it was literally I hadn't caught a fish on that rig yet, and it's gone.
Yeah, and
It's
then
just,
once that happens and you get that backlash, there's nothing you can do except cut the
no,
line. If you can
no,
get to it,
yeah.
and cut the line, that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's gonna drown you. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
and we and I'm guilty. I've gotten lazy, and I'd been walking away from rods, and there'd be kids watching them. A kid comes running up to the house and says, "That rod's rolling, mister." And I go down there, and it's broke off sand spike, no rod, no top half of the sand spike, and it's just you know the story.
Yep.
I did parallels along that beach, thinking I might cut that line, find that line, or
Well,
find that
yeah.
rod, and it
Yeah,
was
that's
getting
all you can do is
stormy
get out
and
there
rough, and
with a plug rod.
and the other rods are running, and I'm out there. I'm like, I know it's just been dark. I'm like, I know these sharks are out here with me. I don't need to be out here in this, but boy, I never found it. It broke my heart. So
Yeah. Yep.
your PSA is well heeded. It's good
Yeah.
advice. I hope others, unlike me, are smart enough to follow it and set them right.
Yeah, don't even turn around and make a sandwich.
Yeah.
Just make sure you got your drag set, and you don't have to pound these things into the sand with a hammer. If you'll grab these sand spikes and just push down and rock back and forth, they'll go right
Oh
down.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they're pretty easy, and but it's
Well, and
just
it's out undoubtedly. Besides the good design and being able to put a towel on it and all the stuff, like they're very well designed by
yep,
people who fish all the time. It's the
yep,
best of breed I've ever seen. Again, I might have survived. It's way stronger than a piece of PVC. I don't care who you are, right?
yep.
It is a inherently strong device, and so that gives me peace of mind to where I want it to be. If it's a failure, it's one of my creation. It's never the equipment.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
I don't know.
absolutely.
So anyway,
Yep,
well,
yep.
man, thank you so much for your time. You're a wealth of knowledge and a pleasure to talk to. We really appreciate you joining, and we'll look forward to seeing you at ICRBE. And thanks to
Yes,
all of
sir.
you all for joining us. We appreciate you listening. Please remember to like and subscribe and download wherever you get your podcast content. We'll see you next time right here on Mastering Rod Building.